Hi, Sean here. Just going to show you the Foamcore storage solution that I've put together for Gloomhaven. There'll be more information along with the design files and a bit of a write-up on BGG. There'll be a link in the description. So this is it here. My primary design consideration was getting it to the table quickly. I've got friends who travel quite a while, so to get it to the table, I can pack it away when they're traveling home, so packing it away wasn't so much of a concern, but getting it to the table quickly was a primary concern. Fits quite nicely in the box. There's just a tiny little lip there, but that's mainly because I used hot glue to put it together, which increases it just a smidge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unpack it for you. Obviously, packing it away is just the reverse, but it's much easier to take it out one-handed than it is to pack it away. So what have I got? So sticker sheet, a couple of little books. The rule books hold the trays in place with just a little bit of added holding. The primary hold is the board. That stops these moving around. I was wanting to create just a space to chuck all the tiles in, but that didn't end up happening. It was just too tight, so I've had to put together a little bit of a list in terms of this is how you pack it down. Don't really need this. The primary thing was getting as many tiles to fill the space on each layer as possible. All these printouts are available through BGG. This one's in color. I just printed it out in black and white because I had to glue it together, but this is a bit nicer if you actually want to make it yourself because it's backed. You just print it out once. Now I'll talk about these as I go. This is one of the terrain tiles. As I said, getting it to the table is the primary concern, so here you can see I can look at this quite quickly and find the tile that I need to get it to the table. In terms of pack down, underneath these I've glued a little icon to show what goes back in there for pack down, just so that the these sheets then still make sense. So you just can't chuck everything back in. It's back anywhere you want to. These ones are a little bit interesting. They don't quite fit straight down. It's a bit tight, but you set them at an angle, they sit in there quite happily. So I've got that sheet or that tray. Try not to spill it all as I get it out. There's the board. Here's the next tray. Quite tricky one-handed. There we go. Yep, there's a couple of these have got some little nicks on them or slopes just to make it a bit easier to get your fingers in there and get them out. But the vast majority of these didn't need it. So yeah, so another concern of mine was to have everything individualized so that everything had its own place. So you weren't going through a whole stack of things trying to find the one that you wanted. And here you've got the terrain tokens, so all the various traps and treasure chests and those sort of things all sitting in there. Over there. The next trays down, these are the in-game tokens. So the idea here was these can just come straight out of the box, straight onto the table. You've got your health and your cash all in its appropriate denominations, and your status tokens and summoning all there. Here's all the tiles, terrain tiles, packed as you saw on that other sheet. So the only one that I'll just talk about in a second once I get down to it. A couple of interesting storage ones. One is this layer here, which has all the B tiles. The image shown on the back of it, on the back of that sheet, in terms of the pack down, is relatively important. It's the way that these actually fit. They're not quite square, and so this way they sort of fit in there quite nicely. down here where you've got the player packs, it actually sits in just a little bit deeper than this part. So there's a few terrain tiles that stretch just a little bit further, and that's why, actually, where have I put it? I'll just go back to it. I've actually set up the top, looking at the box from the long edge with the tokens on your left. So the tokens on the left, and that's the way that you pack it down. And that just ensures that you end up with these ones here, which stretch just that little bit further out. And in particular, this one here sticks that little bit further out and sits in fine. Down in here, we've got the health and mana counters, and so these trays are stacked such that that sits on top of them, so it's not going to be butting up against it or rubbing up against it. So the rest of those are just pretty standard, so I'm just going to pull the lot out. Whoops! And they're going to go flying everywhere. Okay, coming down, we've got player packs. I'll pop him off. So obviously you've got the player card that sits on top. Chuck that off. I was able to get the current player sheet in there. Had to fold it as such. So 3 times across and then in half, and then that sits in there quite nicely. So in here we've got the player reference, we've got the standard attack deck, we've got the current equipment that they're using, as well as the locked modifier deck. So this would be their current deck. This is the abilities that get added in. Modifiers that get added in. Abilities are over here. So we've got the player pack, which comes off, the active abilities, and then down here are the potential abilities that can be added in later. Their quest card player's quest card would probably just sit under here as well. It's just a single card, so not really worth doing a little token for. So that would be everything. There are 2 different sizes of player pack, which I'll come to later on when I get the rest of them out. Yeah, so again, I really wanted to have player packs in here because it just makes setup so much easier. So we've got the 4 player packs down here, and here we've got the monster tokens. So these ones all have little notches to help get them out. They also have, let me just pull one out. They also have a little icon that's been glued down just to show where they slot back in. So there's your first tray of monsters and your second tray of monsters, and here's all your bosses with the dragon sitting down the bottom. There are a couple of tweaks. The actual design files that I've put together actually have a couple of very minor tweaks, things such as when I put this tray together, these ended up being just a smidge tight, so the actual design files have these moved down a little bit. There's a few little tiny tweaks like that. I think the other one was, this was a little bit too, doesn't need to be as long, so I've trimmed that down to move everything else down a smidge to allow for that. So if you do make it, it'll be better than mine because it'll have all the little tweaks. Right, carrying on down, here we've got the standees, bases, and these tiles. So you've got those ones, you've got these little red ones. That is one of the changes that I did. I made that a little bit too tight. You've got the element tokens, as well as the little round marker token that goes in there. So that sits just down in there, comes on out. Down here we have the, as I showed you before, the mana and health, as well as all the envelopes, what you want to call it, the magic board goes in halfway. If you put it in and it's sitting up too high, just rotate it. Nothing in this game is square. You've got the player card, and that all sits down in there, which keeps, I'll pull all these off, keeps all these nice and tight. Go around pulling these out. I'm only playing a 3-player game at the moment, so that one's empty. So what we have here is we've got 2 different heights. Obviously everything falls down once you pull it out. Yeah, unfortunately one of the things I really wanted to do was you know, avoid that, but the space in here is just so tight. I had to make a compromise. The compromise was these aren't in their own tray, and obviously there's nothing butting up against this once you actually pull it out. I'll talk about those in just a second. So there's 2 different heights. One is 26 millimeters, the other one is 32. There's one character who has, according to the catalogue of what's in Gloomhaven, there's one character that's got 40 ability cards. Everybody else is roughly around 30. And so the 40 has his own player tray that takes that stack, and everybody else fits into the other 3. So that's called out in the design file. I'm just going to move these out of the way. Right, I was going to talk about these. So one of the annoying things, obviously, is these fall down into this space when you're pulling them out. But again, it's only a problem when you come to pack up, which, as I've said before, is not a big concern of mine. These aren't square. These are slightly rounded. And you've got 2 here, which are actually a different size altogether. They're slightly longer. So the slightly longer ones need to go on this top layer, along with what I do is the current characters go up here. I'm also putting the tokens, the little cardboard tokens that come out of here. I'm storing them with the miniatures because I feel like they're not going to come out of here. These close up quite tightly. I feel like these don't close as tightly, and there's a good chance that the little cardboard tokens will fall out of these. So your current characters can all just sit on the top quite happily. The ones down the bottom, it's important that you put them the right way. So I'm just going to pull these out. There we go. They sit as such with the opening or the join down this side. Like I said, they're not square. You put them that way, you won't get the player packs in. They have to sit this way. Right, on to the last couple of trays. We've got the monster stats sitting in here. Mine's a bit skewered because I stuffed it up. Obviously, if you go by the actual design, that won't be the case. These are a little bit tight. It's one of the things that I'm not as happy about, but I ran out of space basically. So it still comes out fine. I mean, I'm doing this one-handed, and they fall back in. So it's just a little bit tighter than I would have liked. Down in here. Oh, by the way, I should have mentioned. So all of these, sorry, not the greatest shot. All these cards are sleeved with FFG. So they are quite thick, and these are designed to handle that thickness of card. You can see that they are all sleeved. So yeah, these are all FFG sleeved. All my modifier decks, all my ability cards are all FFG sleeved. The way I'm working them is the characters that are currently in use, obviously all their cards sit in here. When they retire, I unsleeve them. The unsleeved cards go back into the character boxes, and the new character cards get sleeved and come back out. Yeah, it's just sleeve cards just don't fit in here, and I didn't want to worry about having to. I still wanted to keep these. I'm not a big fan of getting rid of too much stuff from the original box, if at all possible. Obviously, you have to get rid of the little plastic insert. The one thing that I haven't done yet, which I really want to do, is put some ribbon around here to get these out, because they are a little bit tricky to get out, especially one-handed. No, can't do it. 2 seconds. Sorry about that. There we go. Alright, so These are the mini cards. I've put some links in the write-up on BGG about where I got the inspiration and for most of these various bits and bobs. And thanks to Isaac for providing a lot of the files, the design files that we can then use. So here I've got all the prosperity, all the items, all the monsters arranged, as you can see. All these are in swan sleeves, so all the items are in swan, all the monsters are in swan. Just anything that goes in the modifier deck, so the likes of the monster modifier, curse, bless cards, those are all in FFG. There is a bit of room here, you can see that moves around a little bit. Whether you could get all in FFG in here, you probably could, but I would say it would be tight. It would be a tight fit if you tried to do it with all FFG. I'd say you probably could do it, but I wouldn't guarantee it. Right, now I can get this out one-handed, no worries. There we go. Last but not least, we've got the larger cards on their side. These are all swan sleeved. I think you'd really struggle to get FFG on all of these. That would be super tight. So yeah, so road event in the distance, and what have I called the last one? I think I've called it past encounters. Yeah, past encounters. Obviously we haven't played very far. Nothing's in there. That's the last one. Right. There you go. So that's my take on a Foamcore storage solution for Gloomhaven. Awesome game. Beast of a game to store and put out on the table. Really didn't want to have to do that again without having a decent solution to pull stuff out and get it to the table. It was a mission and a half before. I haven't actually played a game since I've made it. Made this all the trays. Just been working on getting the design files all sorted. So thank you for watching. Hopefully somebody finds this useful and somebody actually does it. If you do, make your own. Send us some pictures, because that would be cool to see somebody else actually making it and making use of it. So yeah, have a good one. Cheers.